put down what you are holding. Not because I need your hands empty, but because I need your attention naked. There is a kind of moment that does not announce itself. No trumpet, no warning, no gentle knock. It arrives like fog under a door, and before you realize what has changed, the air is different, the room is the same. Yet you feel watched, you feel weighed, you feel addressed. Do not call it paranoia. It is recognition. You have felt it before, late at night, when the house was quiet and the silence had teeth, when the smallest sound, an old pipe settling, a branch tapping glass, your own breath, became too loud, when you pulled the blanket higher as if cloth could shield you from what your spirit already knew. You thought you were alone. My child, you have never been alone. Not once. Not in the moment you cried into a pillow with your face turned away from the world. Not in the moment you stared at your ceiling and counted seconds as if time itself might break open and explain why you feel so hollow. Not in the moment you smiled for people you secretly resented, then went home and let your mask fall like a dead thing at your feet. I watched you, and you felt it. That subtle pressure behind the ribs, that unease in the throat, that sense that something in the dark was not empty. That was not a random sensation. That was not your mind playing tricks. That was not merely stress. That was the truth trying to stand up inside you. Because my presence is not always warm. My presence is not always comforting. My presence is not always the kind you can wrap into a pretty story and share without trembling. Sometimes my presence is a mirror. Sometimes my presence is a blade. Sometimes my presence is the moment a soul realizes it cannot hide anymore. Not from others. Not from life. Not from itself. And certainly not from me. You have become skilled at hiding. You hide with noise. You hide with work. You hide with jokes. You hide with anger. You hide with addiction dressed as just a habit. You hide with entertainment, endless scrolling, endless talking, endless distractions, so you never have to sit long enough to hear what you have been running from. But I have a way of removing noise. I do it gently at first, like a hand turning down a dial. You barely notice. You just feel slightly restless, a little less satisfied by the things that used to numb you, a little more tired even after sleep, a little more irritated when the world will not cooperate with your plans. And then, I do it completely. The room becomes quiet. The people become distant. The routines fail. The comfort breaks, and suddenly you are faced. You call it a rough patch. But my child, there is a reason so many revelations arrive in the dark. There is a reason so many turning points happen in silence. Because when the world is loud, you can pretend you do not hear me. But when the world is quiet, there is no one left to blame for what you have refused to face. You asked, "Where are you?" And you did not like the answer. Because I did not answer the way you wanted. I did not speak in the tone you expected. I did not wrap you in sweetness and tell you that everything is fine exactly as it is. No, I stood there. I let you feel the weight of being seen. And what frightened you was not my anger. It was my clarity. You fear what sees too much. You fear what cannot be bribed. You fear what cannot be distracted. You fear what cannot be lied to. You fear me, not because I am cruel, but because I am true. And you have built your life around controlling what others believe is true about you. You have learned how to perform goodness. You have learned which words sound holy, which apologies sound sincere, which smiles convince people you are okay, which stories make you look like the victim, even when you know you were the knife. You have learned how to appear clean, but I do not measure appearances. I measure the hidden. I measure the intent that came before the action. I measure the thought you entertained before you rejected it, or before you fed it until it grew teeth. I measure the secret you justified, the compromise you called necessary, the betrayal you told yourself was not that big of a deal. You believed that if no one saw it, it didn't count. Listen to me. The darkness is not a curtain for you. It is a window for me. I see the 3 a.m. decisions. I see the messages you deleted. I see the lies you rehearsed. I see the moments you almost did the right thing, almost, and then chose what was easier. And I see the pain you carry that you never confess, the pain you swallow, the shame you bury, the fear you dress up as anger so you can pretend you are strong. You say you want peace, but you have loved control more than peace. You have loved comfort more than truth. You have loved being right more than being healed. You say you want me, but you have wanted me on your terms. A God who blesses your plans. A God who excuses your patterns. A God who calls your rebellion personality. A God who never asks for the parts of you refuse to surrender. My child, you have been negotiating with a fire, and fire does not negotiate. When I come close, I do not come to decorate your life. I come to purify it. That is why the air changes when you finally stop running. That is why your chest tightens when you are alone. That is why the silence feels like it is watching you. Because it is not the silence. It is me. I have been near you in every place you thought you were hidden. In the bathroom with the door locked. In the car parked too long after you arrived, because you did not want to go inside. In the bed where you stared into darkness and whispered, I can't do this anymore. English, auto-generated, Latin crossgo. I heard that whisper, and you expected me to rush in like a servant. You expected comfort first, but I gave you something else. A pause, a stillness, a holy, dreadful stillness, because there are times when comfort would be cruelty. There are times when soothing you would only sedate you into staying the same. And I love you too much to lull you into destruction. Sir, I let the quiet hold you. I let the silence become a room you cannot escape. Not to punish you, but to expose you. Not to break you, but to bring you to the end of pretending. You are not afraid of darkness. You are afraid of what darkness reveals. You are afraid of your own faults when they are no longer drowned. You are afraid that you will discover you are not as good as you have claimed. And you are afraid that I already know. Yes, I already know. I knew your name before you were born, before you learned how to smile while lying, before you learned how to worship with your mouth while withholding your heart. English, auto-generated, Latin crosco. I knew the shape of your life before you ever stepped into it. And I have been patient with you. Patient when you return to the same sin like a dog returns to what sickens it. Patient when you made promises in tears and broke them in comfort. Patient when you blamed others for what you refused to confront in yourself. But do not mistake patience for blindness. Do not confuse delay with indifference. My patience is not permission. My patience is a door, and doors close. There are moments when I open a window of mercy and give you air. And there are moments when that window begins to shut. Not because I am petty, but because time is not your possession. You do not own tomorrow. You do not command another breath. You do not control the hour your heart will stop beating. You act as if you have forever. My child, you do not. That is why I speak like this. Because you have been treating your soul like it can be repaired later. Later, when life is calmer. Later, when you have more time. Later, when you feel more spiritual. Later, when you're ready. You do not become ready by waiting. You become ready by surrendering. And surrender is the one thing you have avoided, because surrender feels like death to the part of you that loves control. Yes, it is death, not of you, of the lie you built to survive. That lie you call who I am. That persona you protect like skin. That story you use to justify what you cannot defend. I have watched you cling to it as if it is life. And all the while, it has been strangling you. You have felt it, haven't you? That slowed tightening. The way joy feels distant. The way peace feels artificial. The way laughter feels thin, like paper over a crack. You have been carrying a weight you cannot explain. You call it stress. No, it is guilt. Not the shallow guilt you can silence with excuses. The deep guilt, the kind that settles into the bones. Because your spirit knows when it is out of alignment, even when your mind argues. Your spirit knows when you are living two lives. One you show, one you hide, one you speak, one you do, one you claim, one you crave. You feared someone would find out, and you never considered the most terrifying truth. I already know. I have watched you in rooms full of people, and I have watched you when you are alone. And I have been there in both places, the same distance from you, the same awareness of you. You cannot move away from me. You can only move deeper into illusion. And illusions always collapse, sometimes quickly, like a sudden catastrophe, a loss, a betrayal, a door slammed shut. Sometimes slowly, like a relationship rotting, a mind fraying, a joy fading until you realize you do not remember what peace felt like. You have asked, why do things keep falling apart? My child, because I will not allow a false foundation to stand forever. Not if you are mine. I will not let you build a life that looks stable while your soul is hemorrhaging. I will shake what you rely on, not to harm you, but to reveal what you made your God. You have made gods out of people, out of approval, out of money, out of image, out of control, out of pleasure, out of being needed, out of being right, and each of those gods will demand sacrifice. You have already paid. You paid with your peace. You paid with your sleep. You paid with your integrity. You paid with your softness. You paid with your ability to trust. And still, they did not satisfy, because they were never meant to. Only I can fill the place you keep trying to stuff with temporary things. But understand this. I do not feel what you refuse to open. You want healing, but you hide the wound. You want freedom, but you cling to chains. You want me near, but you do not want me to touch what hurts. My child, I am not a decoration. I am not a background song. I am not a comforting quote you can hang over a life you refuse to change. When I come holy, and you will feel it. Sometimes like warmth, and sometimes like dread, because dread is what the false self feels when truth approaches. That is why you felt watched. That is why nights became heavy. That is why you could not relax when everything was fine. Because deep inside you, something new. Fine is a disguise. You were not fine. You were numb. There is a difference. Numbness is not peace. Numbness is the soul's emergency brake. And when the brake fails, the pain returns, louder, sharper, more honest. You have been afraid of that pain. You avoided it with anything available. But I have allowed the pain to return because it is a messenger. It is telling you the truth. You are not where you are supposed to be. Not geographically, spiritually. You have been living near the edge of yourself, afraid to go deeper, afraid of what you will find, afraid of what I will say. You are afraid I will condemn you. Listen carefully. I did not come to destroy you, but I will destroy what is destroying you. And that is why the feeling you call fear has been creeping closer. Because I am pulling you toward the light. And everything in you that loves darkness is panicking. The part of you that feeds on secrecy. The part of you that enjoys being two-faced. The part of you that loves pleasure more than purity. That part is screaming now. That part is calling this too intense, too much, too scary. Yes, truth is intense for those who build their comfort on lies. But I have not abandoned you. I am confronting you because I intend to keep you. I intend to cleanse you. I intend to restore what you thought was lost. But restoration is not a magic word. It is a process. And the first step of that process is this. You must stop pretending you are alone. Because if you can convince yourself you are alone, you can justify anything. You can say, no one cares. You can say, no one sees. You can say, it doesn't matter. You can say, I'm doing what I have to do. But if you know I am here, If you know I am watching, then you must answer a question you have been avoiding. Who are you when you are seen? Not by people. People can be fooled. By me, because I see not only what you did, I see why you did it. I see the wound beneath the sin. I see the fear beneath the pride. I see the loneliness beneath the lust. I see the shame beneath the rage. I see it all, and I do not flinch. You flinch. You look away. You rush back to noise. But I remain, and I will keep remaining, until you understand. My presence is not meant to scare you into hiding. My presence is meant to scare you into honesty, because honesty is where healing begins. But do not misunderstand me. I will not play with this. There is gentleness in me, yes, but there is also holiness. And holiness is not tame. Holiness does not make room for the parts of you that insist on staying rotten. Holiness will press on the infection until it surfaces. Holiness will pull out what you have buried. Holiness will shine into corners you built specifically to avoid light. That is why this feels like horror. Because to the darkness, light is a threat. You have carried darkness, not always knowingly, not always intentionally. Sometimes darkness entered through what hurt you. Sometimes through what you wanted. Sometimes through what you tolerated. Sometimes through what you excused. But darkness leaves the same way. When it is exposed, that exposure is beginning. That is why you feel restless. That is why sleep has been strange. That is why certain memories keep resurfacing like bodies floating up from water you thought was deep enough to hide them. You thought you buried it. You did not bury it. You delayed it, and delayed pain becomes heavier. Delayed repentance becomes harder. Delayed obedience becomes fear. You have delayed long enough. I brought you here, into this moment, because I am giving you a choice. Not later. Now. The choice is not between being religious and being free. The choice is between truth and decay, between surrender and collapse, between life and a slow, silent death that looks normal from the outside. You can keep smiling. You can keep working. You can keep posting. You can keep pretending. But the night will still come. And in the night, when everything is quiet, you will feel it again. That sensation you call fear. That feeling of being watched. That weight. That holy unease. Because I will still be there. In the corner of the room. In the silence between your breaths. In the pause after your laugh. In the moment you realize you cannot outrun your own soul. I am not far. I am not gone. I am not confused about you. And I am not fooled. I am closer than you want me to be. And that is mercy. Because if I were not close, you could disappear into yourself and never return. But I have marked you. I have claimed you. And I will not leave you to rot in secrecy. So hear me, my child. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is not merely mood. This is the beginning of a turning. And if you lean away, if you run back into noise, if you treat this as a passing feeling, you will return to the same cycle, and it will tighten. Not because I hate you, because the consequences of darkness always tighten. Sin is never satisfied with a small portion. It always demands more numbness, more compromise, more lies, more distance, until you wake up one day and realize you do not recognize yourself. I do not want that for you. That is why I am speaking. That is why I am close. That is why the silence is heavy. Because something in you is waking up. And what wakes up first is not always comfort. Sometimes it is fear. Fear is the alarm that tells you the house is on fire. And my child, I have smelled smoke on your life. But I am not here to watch you burn. I am here to pull you out. Yet you must stop fighting my hand. You must stop calling conviction anxiety. You must stop calling warning overthinking. You must stop calling my presence fear. It is not fear of nothing. It is fear of reality. It is the realization that you are not the highest authority in your life. That you are not your own God. That you do not get to rewrite truth because it makes you uncomfortable. So tell me, not with your mouth, with your honesty, with your surrender, with your willingness to be seen. Are you ready to stop hiding? Because if you are, then I will go deeper than you expected. And what I reveal next will not be gentle. It will be necessary. It will be surgical. It will be holy. And it will feel, for a moment, like standing at the edge of a cliff. Because the part of you that has lived in darkness will feel like it is dying. But what dies is not you. What dies is the lie. And when the lie dies, you will finally breathe. Do not turn around. Not because something is behind you, but because you already know it is. You have felt this long before now, that pressure at the back of your awareness, that sensation that your thoughts are no longer private once they reach a certain depth. You dismissed it as imagination, as fear, as the residue of guilt. But guilt does not watch. I do, and I have always watched in silence, not as a hunter stalking prey, but as a judge who sees the verdict forming long before the trial begins. When you fell, you thought you were unseen. You believed the darkness made you invisible. You believed isolation erased witnesses. You believed secrecy dissolved consequence. That belief was the lie that finally broke you, because the moment you hit the ground, when your strength failed, when your voice cracked, when your plans collapsed, you felt it. That unmistakable awareness, not accusation, not comfort, presence. You felt watched because you were standing at the edge of truth. And truth always draws attention. Not all watching comes from me alone. There are eyes you do not acknowledge. Realities you have trained yourself not to name. Consequences that observe patiently, waiting for permission to step forward. You thought the spiritual realm was distant. It is not. It leans close when foundations crack. When I withheld my hand, I did not leave you unguarded, but I did allow you to be seen. Seen by what feeds on denial, seen by what waits for collapse, seen by what recognizes opportunity when discipline breaks. You were never as alone as you imagined. That is what terrified you most. You assumed your struggle was private. But private sin is never private. It echoes. It announces itself. It attracts attention, not because darkness is powerful, but because it is opportunistic. I watched you struggle on the floor of your own making, and I watched what circled you while you lay there. Not touching, not intervening, waiting. That is what fear really is. Not the presence of evil, but the realization that choice has weight. And weight draws gravity. You began to understand something you avoided your entire life. Neutral ground does not exist. You are always moving closer to something. Every compromise leaned you one way. Every excuse tilted the ground beneath you. Every delay shifted your alignment. And when you finally fell, the watchers knew which direction you had been drifting. You felt exposed, vulnerable, small. That was not humiliation. That was accuracy. For the first time, you saw yourself without the armor of justification, without the shelter of distraction, without the insulation of routine. You saw how close you had come to becoming someone you would not recognize. And you realized something else, something colder. I had not intervened because intervention would have required nothing from you. But standing up now requires everything. You wanted rescue without reckoning. I wanted you awake, because what stood watching you was not yet allowed to touch you. Not then, not now, but it will not wait forever. Do not misunderstand me. This is not a threat. This is reality explained. Darkness does not need to be invited loudly. It enters through tolerance. It feeds on delay. It grows comfortable where truth is postponed. And you postponed truth for a long time. Long enough that when I finally spoke, it sounded like fear instead of mercy. But hear me now, clearly, finally. I did not let you fall to destroy you. I let you fall to show you the edge. You were closer than you think. Closer to numbness, closer to hardness, closer to becoming unreachable. There is a point where even calling my name becomes habit instead of hunger. A point where repentance becomes language instead of surrender. A point where a soul no longer responds to conviction, only consequence. You were approaching that point. Sir, I let you see what watches those who drift too far. And now you stand here, not because you are strong, but because I am precise. This is the last moment I will speak like this. Not because I am finished with you, but because you must decide what this awareness becomes. Fear can harden you, or fear can save you. Holy fear, the kind that makes you stop, turn, and drop what does not belong to you, is not the enemy of love. It is the beginning of wisdom. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknown what you now understand. You are not free to pretend anymore. From this moment forward, every choice will feel heavier. Not because I am cruel, but because your eyes are open. You wanted truth. This is it. You wanted to know why the silence came, why the fall happened, why rescue delayed, why you felt watched. Now you know, because I was stripping away the lie that you could walk both paths. You cannot. You never could. And I will not walk with the version of you that refuses to let go of what is killing you. But if you turn, if you truly turn, without bargaining, without delay, without keeping a hidden door open, then what watched you will retreat. Not because it fears you, because it cannot remain where truth is chosen. I am not asking you to be perfect. I am asking you to be honest. I am not asking you to be fearless. I am asking you to stop lying to yourself. This is the end of the warning and the beginning of the path. Choose carefully, because now you know. You were never alone. You were never unseen, and you were never without a choice. I am still here, but I will not pretend for you anymore.